Can you imagine planning your dream wedding, only to find your parents more invested in buying your sister a used sedan than celebrating your future? That's where I was, one rainy afternoon in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had the Pinterest boards, the dress sketches, and a heart full of hope until my family reminded me, once again, where I stood in their hierarchy. This isn't just about money, it's about dignity, and the quiet decision I made that day would ripple far beyond the altar. The rain had been steady all afternoon, thick southern drops that blurred the window panes of our Charlotte apartment. I'd always loved the rain. Something about it felt cinematic, like the world was pausing just long enough for big decisions to be made. That day, it felt more like a warning. I had wedding plans spread across the coffee table, scribbled budget sheets, swatches of burgundy linen, and a dog-eared vendor catalog. It wasn't extravagant by any means, just thoughtful, meaningful. Every detail was a reflection of Nathan and me, or at least it had been until the knock on the door. Mom and Dad came over unannounced. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way they stood just inside the doorway, umbrellas dripping, coats still clutched in their hands. Something was off. I felt it before a word was spoken. We sat. I offered them coffee. Mom accepted. Dad declined. He looked uncomfortable. "We wanted to talk to you," Mom began, avoiding eye contact. I glanced between them, fingers still brushing a sketch of my wedding arch. "Okay, what's up?" They exchanged a look. That look. The one I'd seen too many times before, when Rachel crashed Dad's car and they needed me to co-sign the loan, when she failed out of college and I was told to help guide her path. "We've been thinking," Dad finally said, "and we're not going to be able to contribute to the wedding financially." The words didn't land immediately. I blinked. "Wait, what?" "It's not that we don't want to," Mom added quickly. "But your sister, Rachel, she needs help right now. Her car's been unreliable and, well, she's commuting across town. It's dangerous to keep taking the bus." "She needs a car," Dad echoed, as if that explained everything. A cold stillness spread through my chest. My fingers tightened around the edge of my budget list, ink smudging beneath the pressure. "So you're helping her buy a car instead of helping with the wedding." "Emily, it's not a competition," Mom said softly, like I was the one being unreasonable. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was surreal. "I'm getting married, I'm planning a life. You think a used car is a higher priority than your daughter's wedding." "It's just Rachel's struggling," Dad said with a hint of guilt. "She can't catch a break." Neither could I, apparently. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. But something inside me recoiled, like a door slamming shut. "We love you both equally," Mom offered weakly. I wanted to ask, do you love us equally when Rachel's mistakes are met with rescue and my milestones are met with silence? The rain outside thickened. Our apartment, usually so warm, felt suddenly cavernous. They left after that, said they hoped I understood, that they were still excited for the wedding. I nodded, smiled even. But the second the door closed, I sat back down at the coffee table and looked at the spreadsheet, our modest budget now missing the chunk they'd promised. The number stared back at me, and in that moment I didn't feel like a bride. I felt like an afterthought. If you've ever felt like the person who always gets overlooked on your birthday, your graduation, even your wedding day, then maybe you understand the ache that settled into my chest that night. And maybe, like me, you've wondered, when is it enough? Stick around, because this is the story of how I found my answer. That night the apartment felt colder than it had in weeks, though the thermostat read 72. I'd always believed warmth came from people, not numbers, and now I was sitting in silence, wrapped in 2 blankets, staring at a blank screen. The spreadsheet had become a battlefield. Every cell reminded me of something I had to afford now on my own. Venue deposit, photography, catering, even chair rentals. Each line was a small war between what we could still make possible and what we'd have to sacrifice. I pushed my laptop away and rubbed my temples. My stomach turned every time I thought of the conversation over coffee earlier. My parents hadn't even sounded conflicted. There'd been no sorrow, no "we wish we could do both." Just Rachel needs a car. Rachel always needed something, and they always gave it to her. A knock on the bedroom door startled me. Nathan's voice followed, gentle as always. "Babe, you okay?" I didn't answer at first. I didn't trust my voice. He stepped in quietly, saw the papers, the open calculator app, the cold coffee next to me. "You've been in here for hours," he said softly. "Didn't eat dinner." I sighed and looked up at him. "They're not helping, not a dime. Said Rachel needs a car and that's more urgent." His face darkened for a second, jaw tightening. But he didn't say "I told you so." He didn't curse or throw blame. Instead, he knelt beside me, brushing a stray hair from my cheek. Then we do it ourselves. How? I laughed bitterly. You know our limits, Nathan, the lodge, the caterer, we can't cut any more. He glanced at the open tabs on my browser, Craigslist gigs, freelance writing opportunities, a spreadsheet titled Side Hustles. You've already started planning how to make up the difference. I'm trying. He took my hand. You always do. That night, I didn't sleep much. I worked into the early morning, mapping out how many writing contracts I'd need to take on just to cover floral arrangements. I emailed 3 budget bakers and contacted a friend of a friend who made dresses for student film productions. The apartment glowed blue from the laptop screen until sunrise. Each hour I logged was like a quiet rebellion, a declaration. I will not let their indifference define this moment. The following day, I dragged myself out of bed, poured cheap instant coffee into a chipped mug, and went back to the desk. Nathan left for work with a kiss on my forehead and a whispered, "You've got this." I didn't feel like I did, but I nodded anyway. By the end of the week, the war room that had once been our living room was littered with lists, receipts, and color-coded binders. I hadn't worn real pants in 3 days, just stretched-out leggings and Nathan's oversized T-shirts. I hadn't washed my hair, hadn't answered Rachel's texts, which had shifted from, "Can you believe gas is $4 a gallon?" to, "What color should I do my nails for your wedding?" I didn't reply. Instead, I was on Zoom with a florist who worked out of her garage and a photographer who offered me a deal if I let her use our wedding as part of her new portfolio. I found a seamstress through Reddit who loved my minimalist meadow concept and said she could recreate the gown I'd pinned with leftover fabric from a bridal expo. Progress. Quiet, exhausting progress. But underneath it all, a sadness settled into my bones. I wasn't just building a wedding. I was burying the last scraps of hope that my parents might one day show up for me the way they did for Rachel. Every time I clicked send payment, a part of me whispered, this was supposed to be a gift. Not a bill, and yet it was also a kind of freedom. I wasn't begging for their help. I wasn't waiting anymore. The pain was there, but so was something else. A clarity. This wedding would happen, not because they supported it, but because I believed in it. Because for once I believed in me. A full week passed before I noticed how the circles under my eyes had darkened, how my posture had curled inward, shoulders sloped like I was bracing for impact. The apartment had turned into a quiet war zone of color swatches and unpaid invoices. I no longer registered the blinking cursor or the tabs multiplying across my laptop screen. I lived in numbers now, dollars, deadlines, discounts. By Friday, I was skipping meals. Not intentionally. I just forgot. Nathan noticed. He always noticed. That night, he came home to find me still at the desk, surrounded by call sheets and printouts of eucalyptus centerpieces I could maybe recreate with faux stems and a glue gun. I was watching a tutorial on how to DIY your own wedding arbor out of reclaimed wood when he gently closed my laptop without a word. "I just need 10 more minutes," I said, my voice a hushed protest. He said, kneeling beside my chair. "Look at me." I resisted. He waited. When I finally turned, I saw it, the concern etched in the furrow of his brow, the tenderness in his eyes. "You're burning yourself out," he said softly. "You haven't eaten a proper meal in 2 days, you're sleeping maybe 4 hours a night." "I'm fine." "You're not." My lip trembled. I hated crying, especially in front of him. Not because he couldn't handle it, but because he always did with more grace and patience than I ever felt I deserved. "I just wanted it to be special," I whispered. "It will be. Without flowers, without music, with plastic cutlery and store-bought cake." His thumb traced the back of my hand. "You really think that's what people are going to remember?" I didn't answer. My pride had gone quiet. He stood and held out his hand. "Come sit with me." I let him lead me to the couch, where he'd already lit a few candles and set down 2 bowls of pasta he must have cooked while I was zoned out in spreadsheet mode. The smell of basil and garlic wrapped around me like a warm blanket. As we sat, he pulled something out of his pocket, a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" I asked, half expecting another invoice. He handed it to me. I unfolded it slowly. A formal letter. "Dear Mr. Nathan Carter, we are pleased to inform you of your promotion to Director of Regional Sales." I looked up, stunned. "You got promoted," he grinned. "Yesterday. I wanted to wait until the timing was right." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you were already fighting your own battles, and I wanted this to be good news, not another thing to carry." My eyes welled. "Nathan," he shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. It comes with a raise, a decent one, and benefits that don't make me cringe. We're okay, Em. You don't have to shoulder this alone. I pressed a hand to my mouth, overwhelmed. He reached for me, his voice softer now. We're not building a life on crumbs, Emily. I don't want you sacrificing your joy just to survive your own wedding. That line. Not building a life on crumbs. Something about it cracked me open. I exhaled, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since the moment my parents said no. That night, in our little candlelit apartment with second-hand pillows and chipped coffee mugs, I let myself believe, just for a moment, that I wasn't doomed to always come in second. That maybe, just maybe, I could have something beautiful without begging for it. He pulled me closer, his arms around my waist, and whispered, "This is just the beginning, Em. We'll build the rest together." And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. We left for Asheville on a Saturday morning, the mist still hanging over I-40 like a secret. Nathan insisted we take the scenic route, rolling hills, fading fall leaves, and the occasional deer that stood too close to the road like it was trying to remember something. I hadn't realized how much I needed to leave Charlotte until we were halfway to the mountains. The further we got from our little apartment, the more the tension in my chest loosened. There were no invoices in the glove box, no budget apps on my phone screen, just the wind and Nathan humming softly to a classic rock station. Asheville welcomed us like an old friend. We stayed in a rustic cabin tucked into the hills just outside town. It wasn't fancy. Wood-paneled walls, a creaky front step, mismatched mugs in the kitchen, but it had charm, and silence, and space for me to remember how to breathe. The first night, we drank wine from thrifted glassware and sat on the porch swing under a wool blanket, watching the stars emerge like scattered intentions across the navy sky. Nathan pointed out constellations I pretended to recognize. I pointed out my favorite sound, the wind moving through pine trees like pages turning. We visited a vineyard the next day, walked hand in hand between rows of vines that had just shed their fruit, the air rich with the scent of earth and oak. We talked about nothing and everything, honeymoon ideas, silly wedding playlist additions, whether we should get a cat. For the first time in months, I laughed without checking the clock. That night in the cabin's tiny bedroom, he held me like he always did, slowly, gently, like he was afraid of waking whatever I was dreaming about. But sleep came hard. Because that's when the memories crept in. It always happens when the world gets too quiet. I lay there staring at the wooden ceiling, and suddenly I was 10 again, sitting cross-legged on the floor by the Christmas tree. I'd asked for a chemistry kit. Rachel asked for a karaoke machine. She got both. I remembered birthdays where she got spa days and I got budget bath sets from the dollar aisle. Times when I brought home straight A's and was told, "That's expected," while Rachel's C+ earned her a celebratory dinner because she tried. "You've built all this on your own," Nathan had whispered earlier that evening, his lips brushing my ear as we lay beneath the stars. At the time, I smiled, but now that sentence clung to me like a second skin. Built it alone, carried it alone. Even this vacation felt like something I had to earn, like I wasn't allowed to enjoy it unless I could justify every moment. I turned to look at Nathan, peacefully asleep, his face softened by moonlight. He had no idea the weight I still carried in the quiet. And I didn't have the heart to wake him just to say, "I'm scared this wedding is the last thing I'll ever feel this much about. That after this, it's just more sacrifice, more swallowing my feelings, more less." Instead, I whispered into the dark, "Please let me feel like I belong somewhere." It wasn't a prayer. Not exactly, more like a wish. Back in Charlotte, everything felt smaller. The apartment, the roads, even the sky. But something inside me had changed on that trip. I still couldn't name it, not exactly, but it was quieter now, more grounded, like I'd stopped asking for permission to matter. The day after we got home, Nathan found me on the couch, wrapped in his hoodie, laptop open, and Pinterest board titled Wedding Reboot glowing on the screen. "What's this?" he asked, setting 2 mugs of coffee on the table. "Our new plan," I said, tucking a leg beneath me. "I'm done trying to make this look like something my parents would have approved of." He raised an eyebrow, sitting beside me. "Were you doing that?" I nodded slowly. I think part of me still wanted them to be proud. To finally say, "We're proud of you, Em." But they won't. And even if they did, I don't want to build a life chasing their crumbs of praise. He reached for my hand. "So what's the new plan?" I smiled, tapping the screen. "Autumn Wildflowers." Nathan tilted his head. "That sounds like a band." "Or a poem," I teased. We spent the next 3 hours sipping coffee and building a mood board filled with warmth, terracotta, dusty rose, amber. Nothing glitzy or grand, just honest textures. Mismatched vintage vases, soft linens, wild-looking bouquets like you picked them walking through a field. A ceremony outside if the weather held. Inside the lodge if it didn't. "Do we still want that lodge?" he asked, pausing at the calendar. I thought for a moment. "Yes, but not because it's impressive. Because when I first saw it, I felt like I could breathe there. It felt peaceful." He nodded. "Then that's where we do it." There was something sacred in that moment. Not the planning, but the choosing. That we were choosing each other, over and over again, even when no one else seemed to notice. Over the next few days, our apartment morphed into a cozy creative hub. Our kitchen table became a crafting station. Ribbon, twine, wax seals, and thrifted jars lived beside the toaster and coffee maker. Our evenings turned into brainstorming sessions with Spotify playlists and marker-stained hands. We even started making our own centerpieces, Nathan's clumsy glue gun attempts making me laugh until my stomach hurt. "I'm more of a visionary," he joked one night, holding up a crooked centerpiece with pride. We weren't just planning a wedding. We were reclaiming it. And slowly I realized I no longer flinched at the idea of Rachel asking questions, or my parents sitting in silence at the back of the room. They weren't the stars of this story anymore. I was, and so was he. Together we were building something deeply, defiantly ours. It started with a text, just one line. "What are you doing for flowers?" I stared at it for a long time before replying. Then I didn't reply at all. Rachel had a habit of popping in like nothing had happened, no acknowledgement, no accountability, just curiosity. Sometimes thinly veiled envy, sometimes not veiled at all. A day passed, then another. Then came the brunch invite. "Let's catch up, my treat, I want to hear everything." I showed Nathan the message, rolling my eyes. "She wants to hear everything, which means she wants to inventory everything." He smirked, buttering a bagel. "You going?" "I don't know, I'm not in the mood to defend every choice I've made." He set down the knife. "Then don't defend, just exist. Let her squirm in the silence." Something about that made me smile. Still, I said yes. Brunch was at a place Rachel picked, of course, an airy cafe with rose gold cutlery and too many mirrors. She was already seated when I arrived, her hair perfectly curled, her phone face up on the table like it was part of the meal. "Em," she sang, standing to hug me. "You look so cute." That word again, cute. Always just flattering enough to be dismissive. I slid into the booth across from her, letting her talk first. She launched in as expected. Updates on her new temp job, honestly beneath me, but I'm just doing it for now. A potential new apartment in Raleigh. It has a rooftop pool. And how insane it was that Charlotte traffic was still a literal nightmare. I sipped my coffee and nodded. My strategy, speak less. Listen more, let her fill the air. "So," she said, leaning in as if we were co-conspirators. "Floral arrangements, are you going real or faux?" There it was, I kept my voice neutral. "We're doing a mix, mostly local wildflowers." Her eyebrows lifted. "That's rustic." "It's intentional." She laughed lightly, tucking hair behind her ear. "Of course. And it must be so hard sticking to a budget. I don't know how you're pulling this off on your tiny salary." I didn't flinch, didn't take the bait. I stirred my coffee slowly, letting the silence stretch. Rachel shifted, clearly unsettled by the lack of reaction. "I mean," she continued, "it's kind of impressive, honestly. Most people would have given up by now or scaled way down, but you're like powering through with scraps, gritty Emily." Still, I said nothing. Let her squirm. Finally, she changed tactics. "So what's the theme?" "Autumn wildflowers." She tilted her head. "Sounds poetic." "It is." She took a sip of her mimosa, eyes scanning me. "I still don't understand why Mom and Dad aren't helping. I mean, it's your wedding." I gave her a long look. "I think you understand exactly why." She blinked. "That's what's always fascinated me about you, Rachel. You pretend not to see what you cause, but you're the one holding the match." Her smile faltered for half a second. "Wow, someone's touchy." "No," I said gently, "I'm just awake." She looked down at her plate, suddenly very interested in her avocado toast. After that, we made small talk. I told her nothing of substance. She tried 3 more times to ask about specific costs, venue, dress, guest list, and each time I redirected. By the end of brunch, I had the distinct feeling she hadn't gotten what she came for, which oddly felt like a win. As we hugged goodbye, she whispered, "Let me know if you need help with anything." "Seriously." I nodded, already turning away. "Help? From her? No, thanks." In the past, I might have spent the whole walk home replaying the conversation, dissecting each jab, wondering if I was too harsh or too cold. But not this time. This time I knew not all silence is surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. The morning of the wedding, the mountains glowed like something from a dream. Hazy peaks wrapped in early autumn mist, gold breaking through the gray. I stood barefoot on the lodge's wide wooden porch, a mug of tea in hand, watching the light climb the trees. It should have felt chaotic, nerve-wracking, but it didn't. It felt calm, solid, like I'd already weathered the storm, and this was the clearing. Inside, the hairstylist was humming while she twisted my curls into place. The florist's assistant was stringing eucalyptus across the beams, and Nathan's voice floated in from a distance, joking with his groomsmen. My dress hung near the window, swaying slightly from the breeze I refused to shut out. Everything was exactly as I'd imagined it. Not perfect, no, but honest. The ceremony space was tucked behind the lodge, ringed by tall pines. Folding chairs formed a simple crescent. No flower arch, no aisle runner, just a soft carpet of golden leaves and rows of wild blooms Nathan and I had arranged ourselves the night before. Guests began to arrive slowly, their laughter drifting up toward the bridal suite. Friends from work, Nathan's college roommates, our neighbors from Charlotte, people who had shown up without obligation, and then my parents. I saw them through the window, arriving alone, late and quiet. They weren't greeted with cheers or warm embraces. They sat near the back, stiff and out of place, scanning the crowd like they didn't belong. They didn't offer to help set up, didn't stop by to see me. And somehow I didn't ache for that anymore. I'd already grieved what I wouldn't have. A mother adjusting my veil, a father beaming as he walked me down the aisle, words of pride that never came. Instead, I walked myself down the aisle, and Nathan met me halfway. He wasn't crying, but his eyes shimmered just enough to knock the breath from my chest. When we joined hands, the world got quiet. Even the breeze paused, just him and me, standing on a patch of earth we'd claimed together. Our officiant, a close friend of Nathan's, spoke from the heart. No scripts, just stories. He talked about how we met, at a grocery store of all places, how Nathan once described me as the storm and the shelter, how we built this day not with money, but with meaning. Vows followed. I barely remember mine, only that I spoke them slowly, deliberately, as if sealing them into the air itself. Nathan's were simple, steady. "You've always been building," he said. "This time, let me carry some of it with you." A breeze swept through right then, rustling the trees. Few leaves floated down, catching in my skirt. We kissed, and the moment split open. Not with applause, but with warmth, a wave of it, people standing, smiling, some teary-eyed, all of them present. And in the back row, I saw them, my parents, still seated, still unmoved. But beside me, Nathan's hand tightened around mine, and I knew. Their absence no longer outweighed his presence. The reception was a blur of candlelight, laughter, clinking glasses, and messy dancing. We served hearty food, nothing fancy. Our playlist ranged from indie ballads to guilty pleasure pop. The cake was 2 layers, slightly lopsided, but filled with lemon curd I'd made myself. There was no formal toast from my parents. No father-daughter dance. They left early, quietly. But Maya, my best friend since college, stood and raised her glass. "To Emily," she said, voice thick with emotion, "who always knew how to build something beautiful, even when she had to start from scratch." The room erupted in cheers. Later, as the night wound down and the last guests trickled into the starry dark, I stepped outside to catch my breath. The mountain air was cool, crisp, honest. Nathan joined me, wrapping his jacket over my shoulders. "So, was it everything you hoped?" I leaned into him. "No," I said. He glanced down, brow furrowed. "It was more." 3 days after the wedding, I was still unpacking cards and half-melted candles when my phone rang. "Mom," I hesitated. The ache of their absence at the wedding still sat quietly in the back of my mind like a child waiting to be noticed. But I answered anyway. "Emily," Mom said briskly, without hello, "your father and I need to speak with you." I paused, bracing. "Okay. We've been thinking," she began, her voice taking on that clipped, rehearsed tone she always used when pretending to be reasonable. "About the wedding money." "There wasn't any," I said flatly, already exhausted. "No," she corrected. "We mean the gift money, the checks from guests." I blinked. "What about it?" "You should consider reinvesting it," Dad's voice chimed in on speaker clearly. "Rachel's apartment search isn't going well. The market in Raleigh is brutal and she's under a lot of pressure." I stood still in the kitchen, hand frozen on a stack of thank you notes. Mom continued, "She really needs a jump start, Em, a real one, not just borrowed time." I laughed. It came out sharp, dry. You're suggesting I give my wedding gift money to Rachel for her apartment. We're not suggesting, Dad said. We're asking. It would mean a lot to the family. The family, always that phrase. That loaded little cudgel they used to disguise their favoritism as obligation. You didn't contribute a single dollar to the wedding, I said, my voice trembling not from fear but fury. You sat at the back like strangers, and now you want me to bankroll Rachel's fresh start. Don't be dramatic, Mom said. It's not about who gave what, it's about supporting each other. Funny, I said, because I've supported her my whole life. There was silence on the line, brief, stiff. She's your sister, Dad added finally, as if that was supposed to settle everything, but something in me snapped. And I'm your daughter, I said quietly, but that's never seemed to matter as much. Emily, Mom warned, but I wasn't done. You picked her comfort over my milestones. You turned my wedding into a logistical inconvenience. And now you expect me to hand over what little celebration I have left. We thought you'd understand, Dad murmured. I almost laughed again. Oh, I understand that nothing I build will ever be mine in your eyes, not if Rachel wants it. More silence. Then Mom said, we're disappointed that you'd be this selfish. We raised you better. My throat tightened. Not with sadness, with clarity. No, I said softly. You raised me to disappear. And then I hung up. I stood there for a long moment, the dial tone humming like a verdict in my ear. Then I turned, found Nathan in the doorway, watching me silently. He didn't say a word, just opened his arms. I stepped into them. He held me while I shook, silent, furious tears spilling not because I was surprised, but because part of me had still hoped for better. Later, over dinner, I told him everything. And he listened, every word, every pause, every tremble before speaking. They want something from you, let's give it to them. I frowned. What do you mean? We help, but on your terms. I blinked. You want to give them money? No, he said, eyes narrowing slightly. I want to give them a lesson, one they won't forget. And that's when the idea began to form, not vengeance, but boundaries, ironclad, strategic. If they wanted Rachel set up, fine, we'd set her up. But this time, I'd write the rules. We stayed up that night sketching out the plan, not in rage, not in revenge, just strategy. Help them, Nathan said, but structure it, treat it like business, no emotion, just terms. The more we talked, the clearer it became. I wasn't going to just give Rachel money. I was going to give her what she wanted, but in a way that redefined everything. The next morning, I drafted the email, short, neutral, intentional. Subject: Ray, Rachel's housing situation. Hi, Mom and Dad. Nathan and I gave your request some thought. We agree Rachel deserves stability. We've decided to purchase a small condo in Raleigh. The unit will be under our names entirely, both title and lease, but we're open to Rachel living there for now. She'll have housing, and we'll manage the property directly. We can offer her an affordable rate and a chance to focus on her future without the stress of rent hikes or instability. We'll handle everything. No need for you to worry about paperwork. Hope this brings peace to everyone. Emily, I reread it 4 times before clicking send. Nathan stood behind me, hands on my shoulders. This isn't petty, he reminded me. It's structure. The reply came within the hour. Mom, this is unexpected but very generous. Rachel will be thrilled. You're being the bigger person. Thank you. Dad, appreciate you stepping up. This will really help your sister. No apology. No acknowledgement of the manipulation or the guilt tripping. Just relief that they'd extracted something. But that was fine. Because this time I wasn't giving them control. The following week, we closed on a modest 1-bedroom condo just outside downtown Raleigh. It needed some touch-ups, but it was structurally sound, ideal for a tenant just starting out. I didn't tell Rachel until the ink was dry. We met for coffee again, per her request. She was all brightness and charm, probably assuming I'd caved. When I told her we'd bought a place, her jaw actually dropped. You're kidding. Nope, 1-bedroom, hardwood floors, a little balcony. That's amazing. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. So wait, you and Nathan are moving to Raleigh? I sipped my drink. Oh no, it's not for us, it's for you. Her expression shifted fast from delight to suspicion. I continued calmly, you can live there for now, but Nathan and I are the sole owners. And I'll be your property manager. Rent's below market, but it's not free. Terms are month to month. You're my landlord. In a sense. She laughed like I was joking. I didn't laugh back. The silence stretched. You're not seriously, Emily, I'm your sister. You're going to make me pay you. Yes, that's ridiculous. I thought you wanted to help. I am helping. I'm giving you stable housing. I'm just not handing you the reins to my life again. Her mouth opened, then closed. The coffee between us cooled rapidly. I can't believe this, she muttered. After everything I've been through, I raised an eyebrow. You mean all the breaks you've been given that you've never had to repay? Her eyes flashed. Mom said you were doing this out of love. I am, I said. I love myself enough to draw lines now. She stared at me utterly still. I stood, buttoning my coat. The lease agreement will be in your inbox by the end of the day. You can sign or not, it's your choice. Emily. But I was already walking away. That evening, Nathan and I toasted with takeout pizza and sparkling cider. You know what the best part is? He said. I looked at him. You didn't lose anything, you didn't become them, you just changed the rules. I smiled, because for the first time I wasn't just reacting to their chaos. I was writing the script. Rachel signed the lease without reading it. Of course she did. I sent it over with a polite cover letter, professional tone, just enough warmth to keep suspicions low. Excited to support your next chapter, I'd written, alongside the neatly organized attachments. Nathan helped format the documents like a corporate welcome packet. It even included a list of neighborhood restaurants and nearby bus routes, because we both knew she'd probably forget parking was limited. The lease was airtight. No ownership. Month-to-month tenancy. Clause after clause ensuring that I not she held the reins. Full access rights. Early termination clauses favoring the landlord. And a footnote quietly stating the agreement could be revoked with 30 days' notice at the discretion of the owners. She signed it the same night. No questions, no edits, just eagerness. It was exactly what I counted on. The following weekend, I received the inevitable invitation. Housewarming this Saturday. Wine, music, good vibes only. Come see the magic. I didn't RSVP. Didn't need to, because by then the photos had already started appearing online. Rachel posing barefoot on the tiny balcony with a glass of rosé, captioned, "Manifestation is real." Another one of the kitchen, our kitchen, with a glittery filter and the words. She believed she could, so she moved in. She credited hustle. She credited fate. She credited everything but the very paper she hadn't bothered to read. And my parents, oh, they drank it all in. There they were in the background of every story and selfie, acting as if they'd played some part. Mom was smiling too hard, her hand possessively resting on Rachel's arm. Dad raised a glass in the video toast, saying, "To fresh starts and strong families." Strong families. Right. No one knew. No one in that room knew Rachel didn't own a square inch of that space, that the fridge she was bragging about had been negotiated by me for $200 less, that the rent was artificially low, but only as long as she followed the rules I'd put in writing. I didn't feel cruel, not even smug. I felt clean, clear, like I'd finally spoken the truth just on paper instead of with words. Nathan passed me his phone while I scrolled through her feed on mine. "Do you think she'll ever realize?" he asked. "Only when it matters." He raised an eyebrow. I clarified. "When she thinks she has control, when she tries to push a boundary, that's when she'll go digging through the fine print. And then she'll realize she never had the upper hand, not this time." We ate takeout on the couch that night, watching a movie neither of us really paid attention to. My mind kept drifting, not to Rachel or my parents, but to that girl I used to be. The one who overextended, over-apologized, bent over backward just to earn a little grace from the people who never gave it freely. She wouldn't have done this. She'd have choked on the guilt. Lost sleep over the optics. Worried about looking cold or harsh. But I wasn't her anymore. The shift wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, like the soft closing of a door that's been hanging open too long. As I placed our empty takeout containers in the bin, my phone buzzed. "Mom, we're so proud of how you're helping Rachel. It's good to see the sisters on the same path finally. Hope you can stop by the condo soon. She's already decorating." There was a time that message would have broken me. The subtext, the assumption that we were equals now, that I had erased the years of neglect by writing a single check. But I didn't break. I smiled. Because I'd given them what they wanted, the illusion. They could believe they'd nudged me into generosity. That family duty had won out. That Rachel's glow-up was a group effort, led by Mom's firm hand and Dad's quiet wisdom. Let them have that story. Let Rachel have her sunset photos and hard work hashtags. Let the world believe she landed on her feet all by herself. Because when the truth came, when reality finally cracked through that polished surface, they'd all remember who really made the foundation, and who owned the keys. It unraveled faster than I expected. A month after the housewarming, I got the first panic text from Rachel. "Emily, call me ASAP." I didn't. 5 minutes later, another ping. Why does the lease say I don't own the condo? Mom said this was ours. There it was. Not even thank you. Not can we talk. Just disbelief crashing into entitlement. Then came the call. I let it ring twice before answering. Emily, she barked, not even waiting for hello. What is this? I just read the contract. You never told me I was just a tenant. You signed it, I said evenly. You didn't explain it. You didn't ask. She was silent for a beat, then tried a new tactic, indignant pity. Do you seriously think this is okay? To trap your own sister like this? To embarrass me? You're not trapped, I replied calmly. You have a place to live below market rate, no rent increase for 12 months, flexible notice, you're welcome. I told everyone this was a gift. I exhaled. It was, just not the kind you thought. There was a sharp inhale, like she'd been slapped with silence. You always do this, she hissed. Act like you're above us, like you're smarter. I didn't flinch. I just stopped letting you borrow my spine. You're cold. No. I'm finally warm where it matters. I hung up, not out of spite, out of choice. That night, Nathan and I sat at the kitchen table, eating spaghetti and talking about our next vacation. The world outside our windows was still, the kind of still that comes only when you've made peace with your boundaries, until my phone rang again. Dad, Nathan looked up. You going to take it? I nodded once, slowly. I want to hear what they think they've lost. I put it on speaker. Emily, Dad's voice was tight. What exactly did you do to that lease? I structured it, I said. Legally, logically, with full clarity and transparency. You misled her. No, she misled herself. I gave her stability. She assumed it came with strings of ownership because she's used to being handed things. She's your sister, and I'm your daughter. A silence bloomed, raw and sudden. Do you really think this is the way to heal a family? Mom's voice joined, sharper now. By sneaking around and humiliating her. I didn't humiliate her, I said. You did, by teaching her she could take whatever she wanted from anyone who loved her. You're being cruel, Mom snapped. This wasn't how we raised you. You didn't raise me, I said flatly. You managed me, you placed me between crises, and when I didn't make noise, you assumed I was fine. Another silence, deeper this time. Then softly, Mom asked, so this is it, you're cutting us off. No, I replied. I'm just not playing your roles anymore. Rachel can live in that condo, comfortably and fairly, but she will live with the truth that she didn't earn it, that it came from someone you always overlooked. Nathan reached for my hand beneath the table. I hope someday, I continued, you'll realize that I didn't do this to hurt her. I did it to finally protect myself. I hung up. And this time, no one called back. Weeks passed. The family group chat went silent. Holiday plans circulated between cousins and skipped our branch entirely. Rachel stayed in the condo, quiet, paid rent on time. Not a word since. But I knew she'd read every clause now, and she'd understand eventually. Power doesn't always look like a raised voice or a slammed door. Sometimes it's a signature. Sometimes it's a smile you don't owe. Sometimes it's handing someone exactly what they asked for and nothing more. On our 6-month anniversary, Nathan and I drove back to the mountain lodge where we said our vows. The leaves had returned in soft rust and gold, the wind quieter now, less urgent. We stood on the same patch of ground where I had once walked myself toward a life I thought I had to earn. Now I knew better. I hadn't earned it. I'd claimed it. I still can't believe how you handled it, Nathan said that night as we lay beneath a sky full of stars. I turned to him, smiling. She thought she was getting the upper hand. He laughed gently. What did you say to her again? I paused, remembering the sound of my own voice as I told Rachel the truth she'd never expected to hear. I gave you what you wanted, I had told her, just not the way you wanted it.